Hello again, my name is Derek Johnson. I'm a product manager for SAP Analytics Cloud, and I focus on planning topics. We're going to be looking at planning functions. So the first thing I'd like to cover before we actually look at some of the functions that we can use within planning is just to have a quick talk about versions. And versions are really a critical piece of any planning activity. And we have two different types of versions that are available within our SAP Analytics Cloud solution. We have public versions and private versions. And public versions are pretty straightforward, as they are versions that everyone can see if they have access to the model, that version, and the area of data that they're looking at that time. So these are typically where you store kind of the corporate versions that you want to make available to the company at large. We have a different type of version that's very useful as well, called a private version, and this is really a sandbox version. So this is a version when you create it, you would create that off typically another private, off another public version, and you can do it off of another private version as well. You essentially take a copy of that, and then you can perform all of your planning activities on that private version. And it's only available to you so that others cannot see your particular planning scenario using this version. What you can do if you want to share your private version with others is there is an ability to share your version, and you can share that from both a read and read-write perspective. And this is very useful if you're collaborating with colleagues on a particular issue and you'd like to share the version to really kind of engage the team or group in your planning activity. So if you make any mistakes as part of the exercise, or you want to test out different assumptions while you're planning, another useful feature of the version management in whole is that you have the ability to undo changes, and you can also look at your history as well. So for a public version, you can only review the history since the last time you published a version. But this is very useful when you're doing planning, as you may enter in a value and decide that you would like to maybe increase the value from 20 to 25%. And instead of doing that math, you can just quickly undo your last action and then multiply the value by 1.25 in this case for 25%. From data entry perspective, we offer a lot of capabilities here, and what we first want to cover is some of the capabilities of kind of directly entering data into the plan. So from a table, you can plan at any level. So what's interesting about SAP Analytics Cloud is that we don't restrict you to just planning at the lowest level or our base members, but you can plan on hierarchy nodes as well. So if you want to plan by year and you have a model stored by month, that's okay. So you'd simply plan by year, and then that values would be disaggregated down by month based on the history or weighting. So there's a lot of flexibility here, not only in time, but your other dimensions as well. So if you're planning by product, customer, by account, you can do the same thing using the same technique of planning on parent nodes. So I think it's pretty exciting. Also, to simplify planning, is you can certainly add plus minus percentages to make it easy. You can enter the number directly into a cell. If you do that, you can also enter in key words like an M, like for 60M would be 60 million, just to simplify data entry as well. So when you start making changes to your plan, one of the things that you'll see is that any numbers that get changed in the report will then show up as yellow in the table. So this is to give you kind of a visual indicator that you're making changes to the plan. In addition to these types of changes, we also delivered functions which we'll be exploring as part of the exercise for spreading, distribution, and assignments. So we'll take a look at those in the exercise. We also had the ability to do allocations. Certainly allocations are used in a wide variety of cases. I think the case that we're going to be exploring as part of the exercise is going to be looking where we're starting to pool some costs. So I believe that they're IT costs, or they could be marketing costs, and where we've pooled them to a certain cost center or region, and then we want to distribute that out to various product lines. So one of the nice things with the way that we've set up our allocations is that you can you have a kind of a visual wizard to kind of guide you through how to set that up. And certainly you can kind of chain multiple allocation steps together as well. So we'll have an exercise in this as well. If you'd like further information on allocations, certainly you can review the help or the online videos as part of the help as well. We'll also be looking at predictive forecasting in our scenario as well. So predictive forecasting, as we're going to be using it in our scenario, is going to be looking at history in this case. So we're going to be forecasting by a product group, and then we're going to be forecasting for the next quarter going forward. And so it's very easy to use the predictive forecasting capabilities that are provided within SAP Analytics Cloud. You'll also start to see that as part of the predictive area within SAP Analytics Cloud, there's some additional capabilities that are being developed as part of time series forecasting as well. The important thing with our predictive forecasting is we're going to be reviewing in the exercise is that it really is based on a certain level. So you can go anywhere within, let's say, your product hierarchy, and then you can forecast, create a predictive forecast at that level. So in my mind, it's a great way to kind of put some guardrails in to see what the system would think that your performance should be going forward, and that can serve as a check and balance for your planning activities. And lastly, as part of planning functions, we have value driver trees. So this is kind of a holistic way of doing planning, and it's a way to kind of graphically depict calculations and modeling. So unfortunately, we're not going to be looking at this as part of this exercise, but it's a great way to do strategic level planning where you're just looking at some high level drivers, such as growth percentages for yearly planning, and then you can enter in those growth assumptions. You can execute a value driver tree and then look at your results. So it's a very interesting capability, and would certainly encourage everyone to once again review some of the help files on this topic, as well as the videos that are provided as part of help as well. And certainly with the models that we provided, you could set up your own value driver tree if you so wanted to do so. And really the last area, and we'll demonstrate this along with some of the planning functions as well, is around our master data management and creating master data on the fly. So one of the nice things about SAP Analytics Cloud, especially as it relates to planning, is that you don't have to go back out to the model if you want to add a new member to your planning scenario. You can do that all within a story. You simply right-click in the model, and where you'd like to place this member, you can enter in the member. If it recognizes it, it'll add that to the model. If it doesn't recognize the member, it'll create one on the fly. And with that, you can also kind of associate it with the hierarchy as well, so that it can be appropriately placed for your planning activity. And once you create this member, it doesn't only exist in the story, but it exists within the model itself. So if you did want to go back out to the model, you would see your new member that you've added as well. So because everyone is copying a model for our scenario or exercise that we've provided, we're going to be including this capability in our exercise as well. So you get to explore how to create a member on the fly and use that for planning. So that concludes this session, this unit, and next we're going to go into our demo. Thank you. Now we're going to take a look at some of these planning functions in a little bit more detail. So we've opened up a report and we're looking at our products sales for Q1 of 2020. And in this case, we might want to add a new member. As we discussed, we simply use the context menu within the table and we can add a member. When we do that, we can assign it to where it would fit within the hierarchy, in this case under the apparel, and you can give it a unique ID as well as change the description. So we've created this already as headband, and we've added it into the hierarchy, and it's now available for planning. So to plan, we can simply directly enter in a value into our plan, in this case 10 million, and then we can do our distribute and spreading functions to choose how we'd like to model these sales through the first quarter. So I'm just going to very simply take our spreading function in this case to show how it will work. So spreading is a relative weight here. So in this case, I'm just going to use 1, 2, and 3 for the relative weights, and we can see that the first month will be 16.7% and 1.67 million. February will remain unchanged. It's 33.3 and 3.33 million. And then our third month for March will be 50% at 5 million. So when we apply that, you can see that the values here will change as well. And you can note that any place where you see these values, in other reports, charts, and everything else, they get updated here as well. So any updates are shown in tables will show up in yellow. So if we'd like to, we could say that we're happy with our plan for January, for example. And then we can bring up the menu for our table. We're just going to select the table here, select our value, and then select, in this case, our locked cell. So you can see for January, we've locked the cell. It's in lighter gray. And if we want to, we could add something like plus 10%. I could have added just an additional million, but I just want to show how you can use percentages as well. And then we could, you can see the value is now $11 million. You can see that January did not change because we've locked the cell, and then we made updates to our February, March. And you can see that reflected in our other table where we're looking by sales by region as well. One of the things I did want to point out here is really around version management. This is really critical as you're going through the planning exercise. It does happen where you may enter in the wrong value, or maybe you're testing a few different planning scenarios and want to, and maybe at the end of the day you're not happy with some of the adjustments you made. You can always go back to version management to kind of undo some of these changes as well. And what you see here when we open up our version management is, in this case, we're planning on version 2020. That's the version that we're using as part of this planning table here. And then we have some additional capabilities. So if we want to kind of undo our last step, we could do that here. We have history where we can look at a series of changes that we've made since the last time we saved something, and then we can revert back to the last time we've saved something as well. So here I want to look at history, and if we want to maybe just take this back a step, and you can kind of inch back some of your changes you've made here as well, and then you can see that reflected. So I just essentially I reset our version to just prior to adding the 10% to our headpan sales. Some additional things we can do within version management is we can create private versions. So I'm creating a private version. These are versions that only you can see as an individual. And this is very useful for planning. So if you want to go through some what if or scenario planning, you can easily do that with a private version and kind of explore the data itself. If you're happy with your changes that you made in a private version, you can also publish that as well to either a new public version for everyone to see, or you can publish it to an existing public version as well, just to update the data in your plan. Some additional capabilities you have with a private version is that you can share these versions with others. So I think in this case, as everyone has one user ID, it doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense, but just want to call out this capability because if you're planning as part of a company, you may be planning as part of a team, in which case it may make a lot of sense to either share the ability for others to see your private version or to make changes to that version as a collaborative effort as well. So Just one more thing I just wanted to mention as part of my continued effort to get and direct everyone to the help files. I know that we talked about the value driver tree as well, so feel free to, because it's not covered in the exercise and we haven't covered it in much depth as part of our discussion, you'll see a video on this as well, and feel free to explore the video, and if you explore it, you can use some of the models that we already have copied as part of our openSAP, and you could, for the most part, recreate a lot of what's done within the videos here as well as it relates to value driver trees. So always, always, always keep in mind all these various videos as well, so that you can explore some of the capabilities of planning in a little bit more detail here as well.